Hey, what's up, how's it? Aloha, welcome to Culturalized. My name is Makani. This is where we get to learn, share, talk about culture, whether it's native, whether it's ethnic, whether it's social, anything and everything that makes us who we are culturally. I'm excited. Before I introduce you to this person, we are a cultured show, so we must make sure that we practice protocol. So that's what I'm going to do right now. And of course, the CDC says we do it in new ways. So as we share protocol. Ke mai lau kau e ke mahala malama ua mahali e aha mali pa ka inu vai ke inu maila na halo na we ke kai e no na we tahala no puna tawahine no dalua no I kila we aloha e aloha e aloha e. Oh, mahalo, brother. Following protocol, we get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, if you don't know who he is, you haven't passed. Everybody has passed your house. I'm sitting with Kaui Kauhi. How are you, brother?
I'm great, man. I'm blessed.
First of all, I gotta say, thank you for being here because I know you were probably up already. Your day starts like 4 a.m.
Yeah,
right?
pretty early.
Even before the chickens start. All the way from Waimanalo, but I want to go over some titles with you right now. Kane, Kanaka, Dad, right? Entrepreneur, leader, community advocate. All these titles that I don't even say titles. They're kuleana. What do you think is first? If you had to prioritize them, what is number one? Is it Dad? Is it being Kanaka? Is it being entrepreneur? I know.
Well, that's a very hard one to answer, but for me, it's more about being a community leader. I mean, of course, most dads would say dad, but for me, the keiki, the community always come first. It's weird because my family's, it is always last, to be honest, and it's sad to say sometimes, but for me, it's just, I think the way my upbringing was very different from a lot of the keikis and the children, so.
I like that, but as we get into it more, I mean, community is your thing, but your ohana is part of your community. You're like dad to thousands of kids, which we'll talk about as well. But speaking of upbringing, what high school you went to?
Well, I went to Kailo High School. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Born and raised Waimanalo?
Yeah, I was born and raised Waimanalo. I actually went to Olamana School first.
Okay.
Which is a
right.
troubled youth program.
Right.
And I found out that I was going to graduate probably 2 days before graduation day. Like I said, my upbringing was very different from a lot of the kids in our hometown because of what happened with my family and so on. But I'm blessed where I'm at now.
So we always, Hawaii people, we always talk about, we have different, even within our culture, we have like, people in Hawaii Kai grew up this way. People in Waianae grew up this way. People in Aiea grew up this way. If you can explain just generally growing up in Waimanalo, because if you've never heard the term God's country,
right.
Why is that? Why is it God's country?
Well, for me, growing up there, God's country is just the beauty of the place and the beauty of the people. Everybody there shares everything with their heart. I'm not saying everywhere else doesn't, but Waimanalo is just different. Yeah. It is very different there. So
it is. Waimanalo is that place that a lot of people think, oh, you just pass through Waimanalo. But once you pass, I personally think if you're passing through Waimanalo, even if you're from there or not, it stays with you, right? You can pass through there. Now, Kailua High School, Olomana, you had an upbringing, but that has a lot of what you are today. So one of the questions I have, what does culture mean to you?
Well, to me, it means everything. Kanaka, being Hawaiian, especially, I'll go back with what my grandfather told me when he was alive. The word aloha, to a lot of people nowadays, they look at that word in a big way because the way the movies, the way the tourist industry uses it. I remember he always told me this: you can never teach aloha or be aloha You either have it in you or you don't. And I carry that word a lot around me, not because what everybody else do, but what my grandfather taught me. And then it goes so deep into who I am today, and it goes back into my entrepreneurship and my business that I own. A lot of people don't understand why I use that word. And even the symbol of my logo and my business, it goes back to my family's last name. So it's very deep. My culture is very, very deep.
We're talking culture with Kaui Kauhi right here on Culturalized. Bringing you what matters. Viewers can receive the Star Advertiser digital full access subscription for just $9.95 per month. Go to staradvertiser.com and click on subscribe. Use the code AHITHING. Bank of Hawaii. Welcome to tomorrow. Member FDIC. So if you're joining us, hey, thanks a lot for joining us. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit the notification bell, subscribe. If you're joining us on all of our audio platforms, thank you guys so much for doing that. Culture of aloha. Your grandfather, you were lucky enough. It's rare that people are lucky enough to learn from their grandparents. What is other things besides aloha that you remember learning from your grandparents or your grandfather that you bring into your life today?
Well, for him, because we basically lived in a 3-bedroom house, 1 bath. There was 26 of his grandkids in that 3-bedroom house, 1 bath.
It just sounds fun.
Yeah,
it sounds.
I really wish my kids could have experienced what I did. Just because the way life is now with social media and everything and technology, it's not the same. And people can say it is, but it's not. The upbringing that he did for us, it's very weird for me because for some of the things he taught me was my grandfather and grandmother are pure Hawaiians. They was so strong into our history and the mana and was so powerful for him. So he actually took his family from the Big Island and actually moved them to Waimanalo because he wanted to kind of change the culture and the beliefs of what he was raised, the way they were raised, because his mom and dad, they had 26 children. It's the Hanawahini family. It's the second largest family from what I know to date. But yeah, so their family was very large, but super into culture and just believing in so much of our history that a lot of people out there don't know. And you probably know, you're Kumu and so on. So it's a lot different. You know what I mean?
What style of teaching was your grandfather? So we talk about it sometimes where, when we're young, our grandparents would never really blatantly say, hey, this is what you're going to do, this is how you do it? Or was it more observation, like kilo skills? Like your grandfather would just do stuff and it was your kuleana to make sure you were watching what he was doing. Was it like that? He was.
That's exactly how it was. You mean I know his name is on the Pohaku down in Waimanalo at our old fishing village in Waimanalo.
Oh, wow.
Kaiona. But he was one of the great fishermen back in the days. And I remember him going down to the beach a lot. Throwing net, fishing. Everything to him was the ocean. And everything was, mauka to makai, to be honest. He was real old-fashioned. But like you said, I had to observe. I had to watch. You know what I mean? That was my kuleana. And I had to learn it. And I really wish I got more into the culture side when I was younger with him. But like I said, there's 26 of us that he had to raise. So it wasn't like, okay, Kyle, you do this, or my brothers, you do this, my cousins. It was very different for some of us.
Because I asked that question too, and we always have this conversation. And I always ask the question, when did you realize you were Kanaka? Because growing up, like we would do things and we didn't really think about it. Previous guest, Kimiona was here and he talked about, it took him 30 years to realize he was Kanaka, right?
That's crazy you're telling me that.
When did you realize that, whoa, everything that I was taught, this is who I am?
To be honest, I would say in my mid-30s.
Wow.
And
interesting.
I'm 45. I just made 45 a couple weeks back, but I'm just being honest. And then...
But I like that though, because there's still a lot of us. There's a lot of Kanaka out there that we may think we know,
right?
But I commend you for saying that, because this is what the show is about. It's letting everybody know that no matter how old you are, we got to continue to learn. We're going to be continued students of anything culture and anything it is. And so, which brings me to my next conversation. As being a Kanaka, was there something specific culture that you pili to that you were interested into when you were younger? Because you were a bodyboarder.
Yes, correct.
Right?
Yes, yeah. The ocean boogie boarder, yes.
Was the ocean the first thing that you connected to?
Correct. The ocean was my life. We basically live right across the beach on the Hawaiian homestead lands in Waimanalo. So, I mean, the beach is right there. I mean, the water, the ocean was everything to me. But even like canoe paddling, I remember started at a very young age, and I just didn't really like it. But I know some of my uncles were talking about like the hokule and so forth. I just wasn't really interested. What I was interested in was the big waves and surfing big waves. That was more challenging and more appealing to me when I was younger.
You remember you remember your first wave you caught?
Yes, I do.
So hold that thought, because we're talking culture of Waimanalo. And again, if you're joining us, thanks for joining us at Culturalized. This is YouTube. We're talking, we're sharing, we're learning with Kaui Kauhi, the mayor of Waimanalo. This show is sponsored by Hawaiian Telcom, Hawaii's technology leader. For all your money needs, Hawaiian Financial Federal Credit Union is here for you. Visit hificu.com. That's hi-fi, letter C, letter U.com. Thanks a lot for joining us. Welcome to Culturalized. Sitting down with my good brother, Kaui Kauhi, from Waimanalo, the Ahupua of Waimanalo. Now, growing up, you were one of the lucky ones that got to learn from your grandparents, coming from a very, very a deep Hawaiian family. Ocean was your first thing you pilied to. You love the ocean. You became a pro bodyboarder, but let's go backwards. Where was the first, you remember your first wave you caught?
Yes, I do.
Wow.
Yes, I do.
Bodyboarding or
well, you can say boogie boarding,
okay,
or bodyboarding. Either
where was that?
Right across my house, my front. Actually, I call them my front yard.
Your beach.
Yeah, no, it's just my front yard because it's literally walking distance from my house where I grew up and my family grew up. And I remember my cousin had a boogie board, and I mean, we couldn't afford boogie boards because our family was so large. And I remember using his boogie board and catching my first wave, and then I fell in love with it. I mean, for the rest of my life, I loved it, and I basically went beach every day. I can remember this when Hurricane Eva came.
Wow, okay.
Many years ago. I remember I was still young, but I remember we were so happy because we always found out when hurricanes came, waves would be large. But I remember my grandfather telling me, "Are you going to go beach?" I'm saying, "Of course I'm going to go beach." And we actually went across with my neighbors and all the kids around in our neighborhood, and we all went across. And I remember there's two policemen that were driving and blowing their horns, like, "You guys got to get out of the water. We have a hurricane watch." But it's something that stick with me forever. Was Hurricane Eva?
So
because of the waves.
You were in the water. I'm laughing because it's such a local boy thing. Because I remember, so even my brother Lanai, we live on Lanai, and I remember we were so excited to go beach.
Right.
Hurricanes coming. Usually you'd be like, okay, you guys got to go shelter in place. No, we was like, we go beach, get waves.
Exactly.
So you were in the water at Hurricane. How old were you when you caught that first wave? You remember?
Maybe 11 or 12, I would say.
And just from there was beach every day. And when did you realize, or was it somebody else that saw you and go, I think this guy is good and he can become, when did you become a pro?
Actually, that's a good question. I turned professionally on my 18th birthday.
Wow.
Yeah. I always remember the day I signed a contract. I just came back from California winning the Nationals 2 years in a row, winning a state title here 2 years in a row. And I was very blessed. The company came up to me and wanted to sign a contract, and I turned professionally on my 18th birthday.
No. Well, okay, yes. So I'm wrapping because Mike Stewart.
Yes.
Was about you were you competing with him, or was he older?
Yeah, he's older, but yes, when I came in my rookie year, I competed against him. But this is even classic. My idol growing up as a boogie boarder was actually Kaino McGee.
Oh,
which is another Kanaka.
He's everybody's idol.
Yeah, right. But he was just so.
That's right.
He was. I mean, he was so driven, but he had an attitude, but he was so good, yeah. And that's what I looked up to, and that's what made me And I remember when I was a sophomore in high school, I actually somehow, somewhere, I found his number, and he actually came to my school and he talked because I wanted to become a professional boogie boarder. And he came and he was my guest speaker. And I think back of what we talked about and look where we are now. It's amazing.
Did you ever compete against him?
No, I didn't make it to one of my heats, but I would have. But I did compete against.
But
Mike
you were in
Stewart
the circuit.
Yeah, I was in the circuit. Jackie Buter was another one. Kaino McGee.
You know, Jackie. When I was living on Maui, he was my neighbor. I think somebody's still making boards for him. But they were making boards for you, right?
Yes, correct. I was basically the first amateur to basically get on the cover of a magazine. Which is the surfing magazine, which is huge.
That is the craziest picture, by the way.
And then after that, I was the first 18-year-old kid to have a signature board model. Like, it's never been done.
What was the company that was doing it?
Gordon and Smith. They're called GNS. GNS, correct.
You had a GNS signature board.
3 of them.
3?
Yeah, I had 3 different. So they go by sizes, right? 40, 41 and a half, 42 and a half.
Because I remember at the time growing up on Lanai, we would bodyboard, right? And, at the time there was... Again, we grew up the same way. We borrowed boards. I think we had one. What kind of board did we have, Lanai? It was a
boogie.
Yeah, the boogie. Right.
It was the one with the faded look on it. If you're joining us, this is fun right now. We're aging ourselves, but this is Culturalized. We're sitting with Kaui Kauhi. We're talking about growing up, culture in his life as when he was young, became a pro bodyboarder, started representing Kanaka on the circuit. In that, I want to find out how all that is involved into your adult life now, because you don't stop. You're like a shark. If you stop, you pop. This is Culturalized.
Culturalized, brought to you by Beachside Roofing, the leaders. Poncho Solar. Poncho Solar has specialized in providing energy solutions throughout Hawaii since 1987. Call us at 808-773-7384.
Hey, what's going on? Thanks for joining us. This is Culturalized. My name is Kaui Kauhi, sitting in front of me, and we've talked about titles. He's a community advocate, a community leader. He gives back, and talking about your upbringing. But it's brought you to this point in your life where the culture of community. Waimanalo has been your home, and it's still your home, and you're in that childhood home and the location. Do you remember what was it for you when you thought, I need to give back to my community? Was it a dream? Was it a kuleana that your grandfather said you have to give back? What was it? Where at what point in your life was like, I got to give back?
Well, I think my boogie boarding career, because I was getting a lot of free boogie boards. I would get about 4 a month.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so in 1 year, I would get about 48, 50 boards. And I just remember giving it away to some of the kids that could not afford boogie boards in my town. And then what that led to was a couple years later, I remember the first time giving back. It wasn't even in my community. It was actually down in Waianae. I got my wife's friends, my friends together, and we got all these canned goods and just regular toothpaste, toothbrush, soap, and we put it in these paper bags, and we actually drove them there in our cars, about 5 to 7 cars. We drove to Waianae, and we just passed it out, and then I made it a yearly thing, and then about 15 years ago, in the house that I'm living in now, on Christmas morning, I was looking outside my front window. Like I said, we live right on the main road. The beach park is right across my house. The homeless campsite is right down the road from my house. And I remember seeing this family of 7 just walking on the main highway. And out of all the 7 kids that they had, only one kid had a bicycle, a little bike. And then from that day on, I told myself, what am I doing? Why am I going outside of my town and giving back? I should start giving back into my community. And that's when I started, that long ago.
That's heavy.
It's been over 17 years since I gave back. But back then, nobody knew because there's no social media.
Yeah.
So now it just got a lot larger because of social media. And for some reason, my whole life, it's like the biggest accomplishment I ever did in my life was giving back to my community. And I'm still doing it. And I'm hopefully doing it this year in November, because normally I do it mid-November or right after Thanksgiving, and this year will be the 17th year. Like I said, but people didn't know about it before because no social media.
From giving away a boogie board, a bodyboard, a boogie board, to giving away, toiletries in Waianae, and it turns into this. Because I remember when you first started as well, it was a hustle though back then, right?
Yes.
That's I think is the epitome of community. They needed somebody like you to organize, but people started donating, right? They started donating things.
A lot.
Where was the first that project? What did you call the project at the time?
At the time, I just called it Kaui Kauhi and Friends Give Back.
That's right.
Kaui Kauhi and Friends Give Back.
And where was that? The first one?
That I would say.
Was it at the beach park?
Yeah, it was at the beach park, but we had the pavilion, but the city took away the pavilion.
Oh, that's.
And it's crazy because the first time we did it, we had about maybe 50 to 75 homeless, and it grew now to over 1,000.
No way.
Yeah, like it's so large where instead of just having the homeless and the less fortunate, we invited the community to come along, because over the years I started to think that there's a lot of families out there, a lot of moms, a lot of dads, a lot of grandparents that still work and they still kind of make ends meet. So I wanted to try to give back to those people too, and not just look at the other side of just the less fortunate or the homeless people that has a hard time.
Taking it back to 17 years, how many? Because you don't just give away like socks or $1. You give it away stuff like we as kids totally dreamed about. It's been 17 years. You took everything you learned as a child in culture and the life you had, the rough life you had, and you turned it into, I think it's amazing because you're giving back to a community that you grew up in that was harsh. If you're joining us, this is Culturalized. We're talking about the culture of community with Kaui Kauhi. Hey, what's up? How's it? Aloha, it's me, Makani. Welcome to Culturalized. Welcome to the extended version as we sit down with Kaui Kauhi. We're talking about the culture of community and how he uses culture growing up into his adult life today. And community, your give back is now going on 17 years. Now, we talked about things. You gave away a boogie board when you were a pro bodyboarder. That turned into this huge give back. And I say huge because the items that you give away, bicycles, correct, boogie boards, and these are things that kids are like, wow, I wish. How does that happen? Is it all you that are getting it? Is it the community? I know you have a great network.
Yeah, it's both. It's community and our network that I have. Everybody donates. And the crazy thing about this, I never had a nonprofit before. So all of this, a lot of my wealthier friends, they would just donate because they wanted to. It wasn't because of a nonprofit or a tax write-off. And it just grew bigger and bigger. And I finally got my nonprofit like 2 months ago. It's something I told myself I would never do, but I ended up doing it because one of my mentors told me about it. But yeah, man, the communities and a lot of my friends that own businesses, they give back a lot. What I mean by a lot, like some of these guys spend, a couple thousand.
Yeah, because I see when you do it, and there's just bikes lined up. Yes. I always say this: you have more things than Walmart when you give away. Do you remember how many? Did you always give away bikes? Was the bikes the first thing because you were watching that family?
Yes,
right.
Correct.
How many bikes did you give away? Do you remember in the first 17 years ago?
In the first time we had none. But remember we did outside of Waianae, right? Now if you think back what I told you. But the first time that we gave bikes in Waimanalo when I saw that family, we had only 11 bikes.
And now you're up to like
we have over 300.
Wow.
Yes, over 300 bikes.
I think the cool thing also about it is that because talking about not having a nonprofit, so for the last maybe 16 years, it was your ike and your mana'o that would convince these other people to say, hey, you're doing this not for tax write-off. You're doing this not just you're doing this because this is what we're supposed to do, right?
Correct.
This is your kuleana.
Yeah, that was our kuleana. That's our heart. Everybody loves to give. You know what I mean? Some of these guys, people can think that they don't want to give, but they just don't have the right person to give to, start something in their community. And I was just very blessed to have the right network to get everybody connected and doing the right thing.
Is there something that you say, that you talk to them about to get them to that point to say, here, Kaui? Is it,
Well, that's a very good question.
Besides your stature.
No, a lot of them, I tell them, my upbringing was very hard. So I kind of go into details how I was raised. Because I had no mom, I had no father. Since I was 5 years old. It is what it is. Yeah. But I think it was the best upbringing for me, to be honest, because it made me the person I am today. What I mean by that is sometimes when your parents give you everything, you don't strive to be better. That's how I look at it. So I don't look back at my upbringing bad, but when I explain to these guys and they're like, wow, that's pretty crazy because look where you're at now. I'm super blessed where I'm at now. A lot of my relationships that I built around the world, and these guys give back. And I want to say something because I don't know if you guys ever know. I think Lanai know him too. Probably you, Vegas Dave.
Yes.
Okay, so he called me up one time, and he basically bought out the whole Walmart, every single bike in Walmart in Keaumoku, just for this event, just for my event.
Wow.
And he did it. He did it in the past 5 years. He did it twice.
Every bike on the rack.
Every bike in Walmart. I went down and he just said, get everything on the rack. And the people are you crazy? I said, yeah, we're doing a give back for the less fortunate. And then the workers were like, what? This is crazy. So we had about 4 truckloads that was outside and we had to come back because there's more bikes. But I remember one of the employees told the manager, and the manager came out like, hey, we should work together with you guys. So this year is going to be the first year that Walmart's going to be working with us.
You just read because I was thinking to myself, you've been doing this for 17 years, and there was never a corporation. There was never a big company that said, hey, I like what you're doing. The fact that you persisted and kept doing it no matter what, because especially in the last few years, yes. It's been rough for a lot of us. And not saying that it wasn't rough for you, but to do it for 17 years, in any other community, right? I know you started, you guys went to Waimanalo, and you thought, shoot, I'm from Waimanalo, I got to do it in my community. How would, because some people, they like to think about it, right? Because you're an action person. That's what I love about you. You're an action. You think about it and then you do it. How could other communities? Because I really think you can teach. Or is there even a way to teach a class of how to do community organization? What would you tell another community to say this? You say just do it, or?
It's so crazy you asked that question. To be honest. There's this lady, her name is Lena Spain. She's out of Waianae. She came to my event 4 years ago, and she blew her mind. Like, she couldn't believe what we did. And guess what she did the past 2 years? She did the exact same thing with what I did in Waimanalo, but she made it more cultural. What I mean by more culture is letting the kids learn more about our history and our culture with ukuleles, the olis down in Waianae side. And I went their first one that they had, and I did a little guest speaking, but it amazed me because her first one, she had over 300 kids. Like, it was big. And they did the same thing. They gave away bikes. They got companies to do that, but they had to pass this course of the culture side to receive a gift. So they made the kids work for their gift, which is something I never did. So I went back, before this pandemic, instead of doing the culture side, I went back and I did an obstacle course. That the kids had to do this. And it was more like physical fitness, getting in shape and stuff and so on. But if they didn't pass it, they'd have to try again until they receive a prize. But the lady's name is Lena Spain.
That's brilliant. Because we get to that point. Kids start to think, oh, Uncle Kauhi going to give them to us anyway.
Yes, correct.
Which brings me to my next thing about you that I want to talk about is that now you're instilling in these kids, you're not just going to get things from Uncle, right? You're going to have to work for it, right? And you created lately a boxing club.
Yes, correct.
Another give. What happened? What was it? Was it a dream? Was it? Of course, we know your upbringing. Did it just come about like that, or were you planning it?
No, it was never planned. This is even more funny because I have 3 kids. I have 2 girls and my son. My middle daughter was going to high school during the pandemic 2 years ago, right? And she was very nervous, very scared of high school because of bullying. And she went to intermediate in Kailua. Straight A student, my daughter. Very smart, but she was very timid, very scared. So she basically thought she was going to get bullied going to high school. So one day she told me, Dad, can you teach me how to box and fight? I'm like, you just made my life. I was waiting for one of my kids who want to fight because they're just so different. And then we started training in the front yard. Then the neighbors' kids came along. Then the community kids all came along. And we just did it for fun, to be honest. And then in March 2021, you're talking 7 months ago, Lanai's friend and my friend, Brandy Lever, she had a fundraiser, a charity event in Tennessee to do with fitness, but they were adding boxing matches. So she told me, hey, would you mind bringing some of these kids to come and do an exhibition bout in Tennessee? And I said, it's on. And literally we had 6 weeks to get ready. None of my kids ever fought. And we fundraised a lot of money. And we took 30 of us, families, moms, dads, kids, everything. And it was an all-paid trip. And from that day, that tournament on, now we're 7 months in, and we've been to 5 different states. And we have 4 belts, 1 trophy, 1 silver medal.
I remember it happened. So you follow social media, and you would, if you look at, it's called 41 Boxing, right?
It's called 41 Boxing.
41 Boxing.
Yes.
If you follow it on social media, you would think, wow, these guys have been around for a while. But within a matter of 7 months, you went, and now mind you, no investment money-wise. This was just sweat equity, kuleana, and just gathering up the kids. And you went to Tennessee, you did fundraisers. 41, how many, you started out with just your 3 kids?
Yes.
How many you have now?
Well, I have almost close to 40 kids now.
Wow. Are you gonna cap it? Or are you gonna keep going?
No, I'm just gonna keep going because it's more of a. See, what people don't know is go back to my community in Waimanalo. 41 is our first 2 numbers of our community in our town, and we have a lot of troubled youth. So, I'm taking in every one of them, and I do it 5 days a week at 4:30 in the afternoon, and I just donate my time. And my wife goes crazy, but these kids saved my life, to be honest.
And it's your kula, it's your yard, it's your house that is the gym.
Yes.
And I also, correct me if I'm wrong, but even the equipment donated.
Yes, correct. Well, first of all, we only had tires because we had no punching bags, and then Corey Carell, one of my friends, business owner, born and raised in Waimanalo, donated punching bags. So we, like I said, everything was donated, and then we got boxing gloves donated, and we got uniforms donated. So everything was donated. People really liked what I was doing and trying to keep these kids off the streets, and more people just donated, and now our club is getting nationwide known, and we have 2 fighters that's actually going to be fighting in the national championships in December, which is very, very rare.
I was going to say.
It's never been done.
They went from literally, it's going to be maybe less than a year, and they're going to nationals, training wise.
Yes, training wise. Yes, correct. Yeah.
The beauty of that, I think, is for a while you have different boxing clubs throughout Hawaii, and sometimes they go head to head because they think it's competition. But what I like about you and following 41 Boxing is that you actually, other clubs will train as well your boxers. You guys intermingle, right, with Nito and Hybrid, and that I think is pretty much the epitome of community. Like
That's correct. Yes, correct. That's what we do. We're people. Some of the coaches told me I'm the first guy to ever do that. To go to different gyms and work with different gyms. Like for me, I told them we're Team Hawaii. We're not against each other, but that's what most clubs are.
What was that difficult to do? Like, of course we have friends, but it's like, hey, I got 41 Boxing. Hey, can I bring some of my boxers over, and can you guys teach them and train them? Was it or was everybody like, oh yeah, let's do it?
Well, yeah. In the beginning, because you go to different clubs to spar to get your kids better, right? So I remember going to Waimanalo. To be honest, in Waimanalo they have the best of the best. Right. I remember going to it's called HR Boxing. It's actually Nito's brother's gym. Yes. Ricky Tarango. He has like 50 kids, And I remember taking my kids there, and he's like, hey, man, I'm just letting you know these kids are advanced. I said, my kids are beginners. And basically my kids got their butts whooped. But it made them the fighter they are today. And I didn't look at it that way back then. I just thought like, wow, we're going to go into this club, and these guys got more years of experience. And I kind of got upset at one point, but then now I realized what they did for my kids was the best thing they could ever have done, to be honest.
Throw them right in the deep end.
Yeah, just throw them right there. But they're learning. I mean, it was all controlled. It was nothing about East-West. And to think about it, Waianae and Waimanalo don't get along.
Yeah.
They do not get along. So when people saw us guys getting back together, I mean, I'm talking about everybody in the community was like, this is first time ever that Waimanalo and Waianae coming together. So we fundraised, to be honest. And I was the first coach to do this, which I'm very happy about. I'm not bragging, but we went to Waianae and we fundraised. We made $1,500 in their town. Not $1 came back to my community.
Nice.
We donated it back to two of the clubs, which is HR Balkin, Ricky's Club, and Westside Striking. So every dollar that we made, even what we spent, we donated it to that club. And I think that point is when a lot of clubs looked at foreign boxing like, man, he's not just there for their club. They're here for Hawaii. And that now it's making all the clubs are actually getting together more and sparring more and now traveling together to different states. And we just got back from Las Vegas. Kaipo, Lanaino Kaipo, he took his kids, and now everybody's coming together, and we're all traveling again to Arizona.
Hawaii needed that. It was a reminder of just, yes, it's great that we have Waimanalo, Waianae, like all these different Ahupuan communities, but I love that everybody's getting together. None of your kids pay a fee.
No, they don't. I'm the only one that don't. Actually, there's another coach who helps me a lot, Coach Allen. He's probably the only one that I know that don't charge. And no offense to everyone else, it's just for me. I would never. I just won't.
So if you're joining us on YouTube, don't forget to hit the notification bell, subscribe. If you want to know what you can do for your community to give back, the culture of community, bringing everybody. Now, we're not just your community, but island-wide, like we're talking about with Kaui Kauhi. Mahalo, brother, for being here. Thank you so much for taking time, because I know not only are you busy with community advocacy and community projects, but I want to bring you back one day because I want to talk about your entrepreneurial side and all of that, because you have a couple of businesses. But brother, mahalo.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
This is Culturized, the culture of community. That's what you got to do. Hit the subscribe bell, hit the notification bell, subscribe. This is Culturized.